Hello. Hello. There are a couple of messages already on Bookstream, so I'll just have a look and see what people have said. So yeah, I hope you can make it. If you couldn't make it this time, I hope you can make it next time. And so one of the questions I have here, hi Lucas, is the languages that I studied at university and why. So at university I studied the languages that I studied at university and why. So at university I studied French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese. That's what my degree's in. And so I did all 4 languages for my degree. And then I did an advanced Czech studies at Charles University in Prague. And I did them because they were what were available at the time. I wish I could say I had some magical reason for studying those particular languages, but they were the ones that I could study, and they were the ones that I had studied. So I just carried on with what I'd done at school, really, and then afterwards I got to do other languages as well at different institutions. But yeah, that was that was basically it. But when I was at university and I studied my degree, and my degree was called Combined Languages, where we had to study at least 4 languages. So that's why I chose French, Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese. And then I actually sat in on 2 years of the Scandinavian Studies degree. So I did Swedish and Old Icelandic for that. So I guess officially, yeah, I studied the best part of a degree in Scandinavian Studies too. Which meant I 6 languages at university that I studied afterwards. So I've studied at university in Sweden for a few semesters as well, and I've studied in a couple of other places and a number of different languages, but my actual degree was in those 4, French, Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese. And yes, I have studied Arabic before, and I just saw a question that said Arabic. Yes, I have. I studied it on 3 occasions. In fact, Arabic, it was the first time I was studying it to go to study and work and live in Damascus. I was going to go and study for a year at the university in Damascus, but they didn't reply in time. So unfortunately, I had to, that's why I ended up in Czech Republic and I ended up studying Czech at Charles University because I had to think of a second option. And that was my second option, to study Czech. So I did a diploma in Czech studies instead of studying Arabic. And salam, nice to see you. Study to live in Beirut for 4 years. And then unfortunately war broke out, and I was studying in London, and that didn't happen either. So again, I didn't get to use my Arabic. And then the third time I started studying it online at university in Sweden, and again the opportunity to use it went away, and so kind of made it very difficult to carry on because it's not a language I hear very often. So if at all, bonjour, je suis en train, ok, c'est pas une critique, mais je me demande comment faites-vous pour aller étudier dans des universités étrangères pour 6 mois, ou trouver l'argent pour vivre. En fait, quand j'étais à l'université au Royaume-Uni, c'était gratuit. Donc, je n'ai rien payé pour l'université, en fait, c'est gratuit. C'est la même chose avec l'université en Suède, c'était gratuit. Et puis, pour les études en France, en Italie, en Espagne, c'était la même chose, c'était gratuit. Et puis, pour la République tchèque, j'ai dû payer, mais c'était combien? C'était en 2003, 2004. J'ai étudié, j'ai fait diplôme de la langue tchèque. Et en fait, j'ai payé combien? C'était, je sais pas, 300 €, quelque chose comme ça. C'était pas beaucoup. Donc, c'était bien. J'ai pu étudier très facilement. Puis, c'est pour cela que j'avais l'occasion d'étudier autant, quoi. Parce qu'il ne fallait pas payer. C'est pas comme les États-Unis. Heureusement pour moi. Good evening to everyone joining. Hello. So Mike, let me just see. Do you enjoy learning languages at university? I do, actually. I quite enjoy learning languages at university and at schools. I find the camaraderie, getting on with the people in the class, quite fun. And so yeah, I will always do courses. I always enjoy doing that because it's all about communication and finding other people who are interested in learning the language with you. I find that very useful. I can understand that you find it frustrating yourself. I do know what you mean. I have been on classes. I've been in classes and on courses where I found it frustrating too. Generally, though, it's been fine. I think because I'm doing a number of them at the same time, so I'm not. I kind of don't maybe dedicate the same amount of time as seriously as sort of when I was at university properly. And I don't have to do the same kinds of assignments I do at university when I was doing my degree. So, in fact, going through the process of learning on these courses and in these classes isn't as frustrating because I don't have any pressure to sort of to be a high flyer or anything like that. I find that's probably, but when you're in your first university, I remember the frustrations at university myself. I had to write things I was just not interested in and had no natural interest in writing, but you had to do it to show that you could manipulate the language in a certain way and that you understood certain concepts and ideas. And that was a bit frustrating sometimes, but yeah, it's worth it in the end to have your degree so that you can sort of, and it helps you to open other doors. Yeah, many other polyglots as well. I mean, I think I'm in a minority of people who enjoys doing this. Other people are not as enamored by these kinds of things, unfortunately. So my connection is not very good today. Let me see. Hello, yes. Moi, je suis pauvre. Ouais, moi aussi, en fait. Bah, merci, Mario. Je suis désolé, mais c'est... En fait, je ne paye pas beaucoup pour mes études. Je ne paye rien, en fait. Et en fait, c'est pas forcément très important d'aller étudier dans un endroit comme l'université ou à l'école, quelque chose comme ça. On peut très facilement étudier chez soi et puis faire ça entre les heures de travail, entre les, je sais pas, entre les choses qu'on fait dans la vie. Je crois que c'est possible. Mais ça dépend en fait de la situation pour chacun. Et pour moi aussi, c'est si on n'a pas le temps, si on n'a pas les possibilités avec les horaires ou bien avec ce qu'il faut faire à la maison, je sais pas. Donc il faut changer un peu ce qu'on fait. Et c'est ça ce que j'ai trouvé très important dans la vie aussi. Hello, I'm very well, thank you. Hi from Edinburgh. Hello. Wow. So let me see if I can answer any more questions here. Hola Richard, gracias por este espacio. De nada. Encuentro estudiando francés y se me dificulta muchísimo recordarme el género de palabra. Sí, ¿cómo haces para memorizarla? Pues a veces sí que es difícil. Es que hay que aprender la palabra con el género también. Y creo que con algunos idiomas, como por ejemplo el español, es bastante fácil porque suele ser una palabra que se puede saber con por ejemplo, con la palabra o, a o e. A veces las que terminan e en español son difíciles para el extranjero también, pero en general sí que hay otros idiomas como el francés que son un poco más complicados para saber 100% si es femenino o masculino como género. Y te entiendo muy bien y lo voy haciendo así poco a poco, aprendiéndolo todo junto. Y eso sí que me ayuda bastante para saber los géneros de las palabras en cada idioma. A veces sí que es importante también saber la diferencia entre cómo se dice, por ejemplo, en español, en francés o en italiano, no sé qué, porque a veces sí que hay diferencia entre los idiomas parecidos. Hvordan har de lært det? Okay. Hvordan har de lært det dansk? Uttaler jeg med CD og eller talsyntese? Nej, det var bare at snakke med danserne. Mit jobb, det var alt. Jeg har aldrig studeret dans og uttale så mig. Det var ikke så svensk. Svensk havde jeg, så det var hver uge. Jeg havde det svensk uttal som vi havde på universitetet. Men med dansk, det var ikke så. Det var bare, jeg læste med serien som brun, og Ja, og så videre, så var det var en politiske serie fra Danmark, og det var godt. Og det hjalp mig til at udtale på dansk. Jeg ved nu, om det er godt på dansk, det er okay. men det er ikke perfekt. Jeg synes på danskene, så er det konstigt. Hello, aquí opinas sobre link y has hecho algunas experiencias con este recurso. Sí, Olga, sí. He hecho 32, creo, no, 23, perdón. 23 idiomas de link, todas las historias de link, las historias, las 60 que hay, en 23 idiomas. Y sí que me gusta. La uso para, sí, a veces para escuchar, para leer también cuentos en otros idiomas y me ayuda bastante para hacer eso. How can you learn vocabulary? I saw that you recommend learning vocabulary in context, but when it comes to a language that you have different script, like Japanese, what's your advice? So definitely you need to tease out the vocabulary that you want to learn. So for example, if it's vocabulary that you need to build and then learning the words and making sure that you practice writing them when it's in a different script, because practicing writing a different script is important, and also practicing writing not just the words but also what it means, and then trying to use them is key to do that. I get that it's a bit more difficult to spot those words in a different script, but yeah, generally I would say that it's good to use context, because it always helps. And also the things that come out most often are the words that you need to learn. So yeah. Okay, how many Austronesian languages do you speak? I wouldn't actually say that I speak any of the Austronesian languages. I've studied some Maori, and that's probably as far as it goes in terms of that area of the world. But yeah, I wouldn't say I speak any particularly. Particularly my Maori is quite weak. I enjoy it very much, but it's very weak. Para tú es difícil aprender coreano. Es muy diferente a las lenguas europeas. Sí, es verdad. La verdad es que tardo mucho en aprender el vocabulario porque es muy, muy distinto. Y sí que me gusta mucho, creo que está bien, porque con el método que estoy utilizando ahora de Talk to Me in Korean, que funciona bastante bien para mí, y con mi profesor de coreano también que tengo en italki, me ayuda también para practicar el idioma, para tener más experiencia con el idioma, también más explicaciones, más vocabulario importante también que tengo que aprender. Y eso es la cosa que suele pasar con un idioma nuevo, como para mí ahora coreano, es que a veces sí que haces algo y estás estudiando una clase, utilizar las palabras y la frase para hablarlo bien, ¿no? Eso sí que es difícil. Do I have a Goodreads username? No, I don't. Let's see. Ja, minä kuuluu hyvä. Kiitos, minulla kuuluu hyvä. Entä sinulla? Niitä kuuluu Suomessa, Makedoniassa. Ole hyvä. Waarom wil je Nederlands leren? Ja, want ik in Nederland heb gewoond. Ik werkte in Nederland. En daardoor heb ik de taal ook opgepikt. Ja, ik heb 2 jaar lang in Nederland gewoond, Olga. Dus voor mij was het wel belangrijk om de taal goed te beheersen. Want ja, ik sprak Nederlands heel vaak met mijn vrienden, ook met de mensen aan mijn baan. Dus ja, op kantoor dan alles, ja, ook in Engels. In het Engels en andere talen, maar ook in het Nederlands. Dus ja, toen heb ik Nederlands opgepikt. En ja, ik vond het ook gaaf om gewoon om de taal te kunnen spreken, want ja, het Engels, Duits en Frans, dan kan je Nederlands tamelijk goed en tamelijk snel leren. En daardoor heb ik ja, geen probleem met Nederlands gehad. Maar ja, dat was eigenlijk ja, ja, mijn Nederlands verhaal. Okay. Hi, Richard. I hope you're keeping well. Yes, I am. Thank you very much. Do you think there are many career paths with language knowledge? There are, Tom. I think that you can do many different things with languages. The languages that I've learned have always combined well with many different things I've done. So in the past, I've worked in IT, and languages combine well with IT. I've also worked in diplomatic service, and again they combine well with diplomatic work. And now with social media, they always come up because one of my roles that I work on now is as a language consultant for social media projects with different clients, and of course if you're running language projects or projects in different languages, then you need to have a clear idea as to how you do that, and also how to put the team together and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I find the words from France. Okay. 1 second. Something strange just appeared on my screen. Trying to figure out what that is. Let me see. Okay, so Peggy, I can see her. Richard, how are you? I'm very well, thank you. Peggy says, "Hi Richard, I'm 16 and I've been interested in learning Spanish for a couple of years. I'm at an upper beginner level and I've had some tutor lessons. How do I get my motivation back?" Peggy, picking yourself up, dusting yourself off, and just getting back in the saddle and doing a little bit. It always feels better after you've done the lesson. If you miss the lesson, you feel more guilty about it and you're more likely to miss more. Whereas if you go past the uncomfortable phase of feeling uncomfortable about having missed lessons and just get back into it, you start feeling better slowly but surely as you build up that continuity of studying. And I think that's the really important thing to do. It's not always easy to do. I'm not going to pretend it is. As an individual, that we recognize that it's not always easy to do that, but I think it is important to do it. So that's what I would recommend you do. What about my opinion on spaced repetition and how you systematically learn all the tenses in Spanish? So Spanish verb forms are particularly challenging, I'd say, is probably the best word, because it takes a lot of practice to get the verb forms right and to use them often. So I'd say that you have to get out of your comfort zone and try and employ as many different scenarios as possible to manipulate the verb forms so that you do get to use them and practice them as often as possible. So if you have a lesson with a tutor, then do your best to talk about not just what you're doing now, but what you did in the past, what you're going to plan to do in the future, what you did at the same time as doing something else, all those lovely different things that you can use to really manipulate the verbs in Spanish. It's super, super important to do. And then also talk about what other people are doing. Yeah, that makes me happy, thank you. Why should people study languages? Lucas, people should study what they want to study. If you want to study languages, then study them. I think that what languages do is they give you an appreciation for what how the people live, think, discuss, and see the world. Sometimes there are differences, and sometimes, for me, the most important things are community with other people, and you get that by speaking the language a lot more easily than you do through a foreign language for those people. That's the first reason for me. The second reason for me is that it's really good to understand how people see history and people see current situations, and you only really get that if you speak the language, because you get to understand how their language is charged with certain expressions or feelings, and which words in a language are more charged than they are maybe in your own. The third reason that's good to learn languages is that you get to understand and appreciate your own language and grammar a lot more as well. So you have an appreciation for how languages work differently and how they are similar, and then also you can often add to your knowledge of your own language, because you might pick up on different words and expressions. The fourth reason is you get to understand a different culture, and you often learn new things, about different types of food, about different types of travel, things to visit, about religions, about philosophies, about all sorts of different things. And you can do that through the language because you talk to the people, and you get an understanding of how they interact with what's come from their societies. So there are 4 reasons I can think of off the top of my head for learning languages. If languages are not for you, then I get that, and that's fine too. So there's no right answer, but there are reasons why I think I mostly study languages. Also, I find it quite fun to be able to express my ideas in my head in a different way, and people understand it. It's almost like a Sudoku puzzle. It's great. So I quite like that, and that's a 5th reason there, just because it's kind of like a puzzle that you have to work out. Can you do Omegle video someday? What's an Omegle video, Peggy? I have no idea what that is. Let me see. Okay. 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 Ooh. Let me see what else I can see here. A second. Quite a lot of questions are coming in, so I don't want to miss them. Hola, okay. Hola. Have you ever learned any indigenous languages? Yeah, Paulino, indigenous language. At the moment, Istang, which is from Singapore, it's words and English, which is cool. Okay. Can you make videos? Okay. Please explain how IT and languages work well together. I'm doing an IT course right now. So Peggy, when I finished university, a lot of the jobs that were on offer were for people to work in IT support, so doing technical support in different languages. So I got to do quite a lot of things like that. I was trained to be a network engineer in the Netherlands, and that was my job in the Netherlands. So I was working as a network engineer, and then as I worked on that email system mostly. It was for a company called Novell, and yeah, I did that, and then that required me mostly to speak German, but I spoke a number of other languages, and then I sort of moved sideways into kind of marketing, which are to do with sort of client support and making sure that projects work and project management and things. So yeah, you can use languages in that way. So I think anything that's customer facing, you're basically looking at things that people speak. So one of the things I used to do was offer my other languages. When I was working on the German team, for example, I did a 6-month contract with Shell and did IT support for them in German mainly, but then I offered my other languages so that I could take calls in different languages being on my team, on the German team, but I did them in Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Dutch, Swedish, Danish, and I'm trying to think if there was another language. I don't think there was. I think that was it. Yeah, I think they were the 7 or 8 languages that. And yeah, so you can. The key is to really go out and offer your services as well. Why does your Spanish sound like from Galicia? No sé, para mí no hablo gallego, no falo galego. But I don't know. I don't know why you think it sounds Galician. Es que como los S, así que más como de Andalucía, pero bueno, no sé, puede ser. Es que vivía también con gallego, así que puede ser. De vez en cuando será un poco más gallego. Es ist Portsmouth Verjüngt i kontakt med polyglotten Christine van Norge. Ja, det er. Og hendes efternavn bare nysgerrig. Okay, jeg kan, om du ikke har kontakt med hende på Facebook, jeg kan skrive jeg kan skrive til henne om du vil. Okay. Det er et problem for mig. But vill du kontakt med henne? First time, thank you very much, that's kind. Please tell me tips for learning German. I'm living in Switzerland and the last 6 months I'm currently A2 level and I want to get to your level. Any tips from German? Thank you. Okay, so I got a question the other day on Instagram about learning or improving your German, and I think the key thing that I did was actually watching TV a lot in German. I started off watching a lot of American shows that were dubbed into German because American TV is dubbed mostly. So I watched a lot of that kind of stuff, and then I also I'd say graduated, but I moved on to things that were sort of very normal colloquial German that you'd hear around you on the streets. So I was watching like reality TV shows, and I watched and some German soap operas like Unter Uns, and I found that quite useful. Now, the difficulty that you would have living in Switzerland is that how people speak on the TV and how people speak in Switzerland is different. So people talk about Swiss German, but in fact, Swiss German is kind of a generic term to refer to all of the Swiss dialects. And in Switzerland itself, they'll talk about Zürich, Zurich German, or Berndeutsch, or whatever, Bern German, and they will talk about all this individually. And so I think it's probably good to do that and to look at things that are local as well. If you can watch like local reports so that you pick up on the Swiss German too, I would definitely do that, and then you will get more in touch with the types of language that people use around you. And I think that's probably a really good way of doing it. Kalispera, Craig. Tiganis. Okay, let me see. Hij sinds video deres i veldig spændende. Ja, tak. Ja, det var godt. Jeg er kjempeflink. Ja, det er det. Hun er kjempeflink. Ja, det er det. Det er veldig fint. Det er fint å være der i Norge. Jeg har vært mange ganger. Jeg har vært 3 eller 4 ganger hos henne, og det var godt. Og også marmelade med henne fra Rosenbetal der i går. Det var spændende. I'm learning Hungarian at the moment. Any tips? Especially struggle with reading. With Hungarian, I mean, I can't profess to have any amazing knowledge of Hungarian myself, but I would say that it's one of those languages that the verbs, as you move forward, get a little bit complicated in terms of small changes that make a big difference in how you understand the language. So I'd say paying attention to those kinds of things and maybe talking through those nuances right. I find that that's probably one of the issues with Hungarian as you move through the levels. Yeah, absolutely. I think that is the important thing to do. Jeg mener talenikamu venine to kakatora nomizo jeg mener είναι πολύ όμορφη η γλώσσα, μου αρέσει πάρα πολύ και εδώ είμαστε μόνο 2 ώρες με το αυτοκίνητο μας από τη Θεσσαλονίκη και γι' αυτό νομίζω είναι μόνο τόσο κανονική η γλώσσα τώρα, αλλά ναι, κανονικό δεν μιλάω 100% καλά, αλλά είναι εντάξει για διακοπές, για όλα τα πράγματα που πρέπει να κάνω στην Ελλάδα και νομίζω, ελπίζω, για μένα δεν υπάρχει κανένα πρόβλημα με το κόσμο στην Ελλάδα που πρέπει να μιλήσω. Αλλά de la naissance, pourquoi ça prononce en anglais? Vous avez une explication? Ok, naissance. Je ne sais pas. Je ne sais pas. Ahoj, Richarde, si veliko inspiraty Heskiden. Ja, Jiki Mods. To je ale skvělé. Jiki Mods, Heskiden. Or Heskeden. So v Praze. Let me see. There was another question here, okay. Arabic, okay. No, my Arabic, unfortunately, is not amazing. I've not got to use it since I studied it a long time ago. Let me see. Okay, okay. Now I can see, I can see that you've written in Korean. It's going to take me probably a long time to decipher it because it's so small on the screen. This is one of my big problems actually with some of the new scripts that I learn is that they're so small sometimes on the screen. I find it quite difficult to read them quickly at speed, you know. Definitely it's taking time. Okay, let me see. 한국어 is Hugo. I can't read it. I'm sorry, I can't read it. It's too small for me. I'm doing my best. It's a little bit tough. Can you speak something can I say something in Korean? 안녕하세요. Okay, let me have a go. 안녕하세요. 한국어 한국어 공부해요. 공부해요. This is quite difficult actually when I think of it because I just studied the language and I've not really been speaking it very much. But let me see. And also going through different languages now to a new language that I'm learning, I find quite difficult because I've not been focusing on Korean. But that'll do for now, I hope. Hello from Spain. Che bisogna ripetere ciò che si è imparato? Ah, sì, certo, perché in testa dopo qualche anno. Allora, per me con l'italiano è stato così, quindi l'ho imparato all'università e poi ho fatto, non so, qualche lavoro anche all'estero, poi ho dovuto usare di nuovo l'italiano per il lavoro, allora ho dovuto anche andare indietro un po' con l'italiano perché imparare una lingua è una cosa e poi non dimenticare con l'italiano è stato così 2-3 volte e poi adesso non uso più così tanto come in Macedonia dove parlavo abbastanza spesso in italiano perché c'era una famiglia italiana qua e non parlano inglese, non parlano macedone, allora ho dovuto usare l'italiano ogni giorno con loro e anche con i bimbi, quindi era una lingua che usavo abbastanza qua, ma già sono passati, non so, sono passati 2 o 3 anni quando sono partiti. Allora adesso non uso così tanto, lo usavo molto per lavoro e adesso continuo a usarlo, anche l'italiano per lavoro, ma sì, certo con altre lingue è sempre così, ma non mi fa paura, non so, per me non è così importante, direi, anche perché è sempre possibile andare indietro, riprendere i libri e usare la lingua, imparare di nuovo la lingua per non dimenticarla e anche parlare se c'è per esempio una polyglot conference, un polyglot gathering o qualcosa di genere, Langfest, posso usare quasi tutte le mie lingue in un luogo, allora è sempre possibile non dimenticare usare le lingue, anche per viaggiare è possibile. E di solito gli italiani non parlano così bene l'inglese, allora tendono a usare l'italiano con me. Così. Let me see. Okay. Let me see. Ben de takip ediyorum ama uzun zamandır kanalına bakmıyordum. Well, much of Kentucky. Çok teşekkür ederim. Kendine iyi bak. Evet, selam. Let me see. Mr. S, what's your best pronunciation in Swedish? Because it's a little bit tough to produce all of the sounds in the beginning, and I think that's important to get right in a language like Swedish. So I would say go for doing that and record yourself and make sure you get the pronunciation right, because the grammar itself to speak Swedish isn't actually that tough. It's the pronunciation that's a bit challenging in a language like Swedish. How do I learn words? I do my best, and things I need to talk about are the first words that I learn. So things that I come across most often, things that I need to say and express. That tends to be how I come across them and how I learn them. When the words are very difficult, like they're very different to words I already know, then I have to sometimes think of stories and mnemonics that I can use to sort of remember them and just reach into my mind to find the words I need. Often with a lot of languages though, I find that there are often words that are similar, words that are the same from another language that help me to remember the word. For example, like if I think of now a language that I'm studying, one of them Kristang, and Kristang is a language that's spoken in, it's a Creole language that's spoken in Malaysia and Singapore. And the two of my new words were grande, which is obviously big, and grande, which is similar to Portuguese. Grande, like it sounds more like the Brazilian type of pronunciation, right? And then you've got canino. Canino is small, and canino is if you think it actually comes from pequenino, they just leave off the p. Pequenino, so just canino, so small in Cristang. And then some words I just remember because I know that they're different. So, for example, in Kristang, they have the word pun. Pun is also, and I know that from Indonesian, and it's also from in Kristang from Malay, which means also. So, pun something. I also know this, also do that, or also whatever. There are a number of ways to sort of remember these things. You sort of have to make a story or remember why they say a thing a certain way, and that helps, I find, when I'm trying to learn vocabulary. What resources are there for Arabic? A lot, an awful lot. So we used, when I was at university in Leiden, we used the Linguaphone course, which is quite an old course, but that's one we used in university in Leiden. And then I used Mastering Arabic when I was studying it in London. And then for when the last time I actually just used teachers' own materials at university in Sweden. So yeah, there are a number of different ways to learn it, but yeah, it depends what you like. But yeah, there are a number of different things out there to use. I think there's even a few good materials now on, I think in Al Jazeera, they've got some Arabic learning materials, which is pretty cool. What are your favorite ways for French immersion vocab learning? French is a strange language because I've always seemed to almost have always spoken it because I learned it when I was a young child. But for me, yeah, I mean, certain words I wanted to learn, that I needed to learn, that were not in my typical daily vocabulary or things that I would meet, I would actually look them up and make a list of words I wanted to know. So in any language, I would do this. I would, if I want to know certain words because for me they're important, then I will actually list them and learn them. I did that in Macedonian, which is my home language, for birds because people didn't use them, but I wanted to know the different types of birds in Macedonian. So I did it that way. I just listed the words. Okay, Farsi Baladi. A little bit. A little bit. So I studied a bit of Farsi last year, and I had a break because of the conference, and I've just not got back to it properly yet. Hopefully in the future I will get back to it. I need to finish a few courses that I started first, and I think that's probably didn't help with being able to continue because I only have so much time in the day, and I started some courses that I couldn't resist because otherwise I never get the chance to study. So one was a course in Gaelic and another was a course in Cornish, and I just couldn't resist studying them because they're languages that I've always wanted to be able to study and never had the opportunity because it's not so simple to find good courses, and I wanted to do that. Currently, how many languages can you speak fluently? I leave that up to the individuals to decide what languages I speak. If someone says I don't speak a language or I do speak a language, it doesn't really make a big difference to me, so I don't really count so much. And fluency is it's so personal and subjective, so I kind of let people decide. If you think that I speak one language, then that's fine. If you think I speak 10, well, it's fine as well. If you want, you can make up any number you want. I don't really mind. I definitely don't learn languages to be able to say I speak a certain number. Otherwise, it would be extremely frustrating for everyone because everybody has a different idea of what fluency is. What was your process for learning German? I actually lived in Germany, so German in that way. Spoke it every single day, used TV. I studied for 8 hours a day for the first month, and went through the grammar and the basic vocabulary and used it as much as I possibly could, and used it in real contexts. And then good night, Svika. I think that, yeah, for me, German was a very special case because that was an immersion thing. But yeah, that's kind of how I did it. Okay, Richard, as a Spanish and French teacher here in Scotland, what do you think about the way we teach languages? Manuel, you know what? It's interesting because I was talking to somebody recently, and I think it depends on how they're taught now. I'm not sure that I really am 100% teaching exactly the same way as I was taught. Still in education is English, the L1 language, and I think that we'd probably do better if we could, and we were daring enough to just speak in the original language so that they have as much contact with the language as possible. I know that it's kind of it's a hard thing to start, but I think it's important, and I think that's probably the biggest thing. I know there'll be a lot of pushback from the students to do that, but I think it is really important because they need a lot of language. How did you find Swedish-speaking partners? I was at university, Ben, so I studied Swedish at university, and so we had a Swedish language teacher to want to find them there. In fact, I have a link in most of my videos to give you $10 off if you want. That's from the Polyglot Conference affiliate link. And basically, yeah, I mean, there was a choice for the link. You can either have the $10 go to you or $10 given to the person. And I decided to go for giving it back to you. So if you're interested in finding someone I talk and you haven't done so yet, then feel free to use that link and get $10 on your first course, on your first lesson with a teacher. Otherwise, maybe a language exchange. You could possibly find Swedish speakers to exchange languages that you have that they don't have and they want to learn. And you can also do that on italki or on a couple of other sites as well. I give them on link probably. But yeah, maybe try that. Cuando haces curso de idioma, ¿cómo te das cuenta del momento? Es que si me aburro mucho. Si no tengo, por ejemplo, no me apetece hacer nada con el idioma, pues sé que a lo mejor hay un problema con el curso, con el material que tengo. Y así que lo sé bastante bien, si me va bien o no. Así que eso sí que para mí es el momento donde realmente sé si quiero continuar o no con lo material que tengo. Y me he pasado varias veces también así, sabiendo que pues la lección no era tan buena como pensaba. Pero sí. Let me see. One of watching the series is Okay, is 1 hour watching series also count as 1 hour study? Good question. I'm not sure. Depends how intensively you watch it. If you sit there and read the subtitles in your own language, possibly not. If you if you're really into it and you get a lot out of it, then possibly yes. Okay, how much do you care about the cases in Finnish? I care enough to get them right for the context that I need them in. So, for example, knowing that Suomi is Finland and Suomeen is like to Finland, and then Suomessa is in Finland, yliopistossa is at the university. Knowing these kinds of generic ideas is pretty useful. Puhun suomea, englantia, and you got the a ending, and that basically means of the partitive is of the language I speak, some of Finnish, some of English, etc., etc. That kind of thing is useful, but I think it's useful to know it in context so that you can actually pick it up. How many languages am I planning on studying in my life? Then I have no specific number in mind. I'll just continue as long as I have breath in my lungs and see how I go. But yeah, at the moment I just have fun with them. It's a lot of fun to do these kinds of things. I can't imagine I will give up doing it, because I just find it interesting to see how the languages all interrelate and combine. And so yeah, I quite enjoy doing it. For me, it's a long process. I mean, there are languages I didn't even think I would study, like Kristang. I mean, I've never heard of Kristang before I signed up to study it, and here I am studying Kristang. It's a lot of fun. I just have a couple of hours a week of Kristang, and it doesn't really take much effort for me to do it, because it's got a lot of words from Portuguese, which I already know, and there's a couple of words that I knew, but generally the words are pretty well known to me. And if they're not from Portuguese, then I sometimes know the Malay word because of Indonesian studies. So yeah, and sometimes they have Dutch words and English words as well. So I find it quite interesting. I just go and turn up and then listen to the lesson, learn something new, and find it quite easy to remember, because it's only 1 or 2 new things that I'm learning each time. Let's see, because I'm preparing lessons for tomorrow while in lockdown. Any idea? Okay. Wow. Okay. Did that help? I hope that helped. Can you tell us something about a spade repetition? It's a spade repetition is used obviously in the sort of flashcard systems, and it's used automatically in applications like Memrise or on Anki, and they use this way of showing you words after a certain amount of time. So basically, yeah, it's so that you remember it and goes into your long-term memory. That's the idea behind it. Do I use it? Sometimes I try, and then I kind of get out of it. I think what bothers me is the messages of, oh, you've missed a day, or I don't like that at all. I find it very demotivating, and so I kind of get a bit sick of it, and then I stop using it. I just go back to just reading things and listening to things and letting things sink in their own natural time. And if they sink in and I forget them again, I'll just have it. I'll be a little bit more familiar with it, I guess, the following time, right? Let me see if I can see any more questions here. Farsi. Farsi zabane baladam. Okay, that's cool. You are a huge motivator for my language, and thank you very much. Crakalak. That's funny. Okay. Which language do you enjoy studying the most? What are you most excited about right now? Right now, actually, if I'm very honest, I'm most excited about Cornish. I really like Cornish. I find the teacher's very nice. The class is very nice, and I really enjoy learning Cornish. Similar to Welsh, I find myself trying to speak Welsh very often. So a lot of words are the same. Some are very different. Some are very different. Some are a little bit different. But a lot of words are the same. So words like to sell is gwerthu. A verb like let me say gwerthu, to sell. What was the other word that was the same the other day that I saw in? So there are lots of things like that some of the colours are similar. So green is white. Green is white. And then gwerth is green, and glass as well is blue or green. It's kind of one of those colours that depends on how you're using it. So yeah, I'm quite excited about learning Cornish. The numbers are similar as well. Lots of things are similar. It's quite fun. Okay, can you tell us something about reading long books? 200 words. How do you test your understanding? I think probably if you are able to summarize what you've read, that's a good way to test your understanding. And if people know that that's who've read the book, they understand that that's what's happened. It's probably a good way of doing it. Who inspires you? Who do you enjoy watching with their language or skills? A lot of people. A lot of people. I don't tend to watch very many language videos. I've got to be honest. I think I watch some things. I tend to watch snippets of them. But yeah, I mean, like Lindy always I find quite inspiring. Lindy Boulders, you're sort of typical people. They sort of come on and learning languages that are completely different, just to sort of surprising people online. I guess it's quite funny. I see snippets of that from time to time. Same with Wouter, and then yeah, I think they everyone serves a different purpose, so they inspire in different ways, if that makes sense. There are people who I find particularly inspiring because they just do things for very different reasons, like Judith Meyer, for example. So she learned Greek and got into politics through conversations with a Greek politician, and Varoufakis, and I just found how she got into it and how she moved forward with it quite inspiring. Please do an interview with Matti versus Japan. Okay. If you want to suggest that, I'm happy. I don't know Matt versus Japan, but I'm happy to do other interviews. If you like the interviews that I've been doing, I'm happy to do more of those. Feel free to. I'm very happy to do that. Cornish, what part of England do you come from? So I'm originally from, oh, you're from Devonshire. Okay, so you're close to Cornwall. So yeah, I mean, originally I'm from the northwest. So I grew up around Chester, and yeah, so my family's Scouse and Welsh originally. But yeah, I grew up around Chester, so quite far away from Cornwall, but it's a fun language. Okay, the early stages of learning is it only works for me when I write stuff by hand in a notebook. Later on, I can I can understand that completely. I write things down as well. So I have my book here of my Korean, which I think I showed on a couple of videos. So this was kind of the last. So the end of the level 1 material that I went through over January. And then from tomorrow I start level 2. So yeah, I do that too. Yeah, Chester is nice. Let me see. Did you ever learn a language via English that you have never learned from another language? Do you always learn a language via English? No, actually, no, I don't. So I learn a number of languages through a language that I speak. There are many examples of that, actually. But I guess, yeah, so I learnt Turkish through Macedonian, Albanian through Macedonian, Serbian through Macedonian, Croatian through Macedonian, Bulgarian kind of through Macedonian, but then also I've learnt some Greek through Macedonian, I've learnt Greek through Dutch, I've learnt Arabic through Dutch, I've learnt Arabic through Swedish, Russian through Swedish, Japanese, Chinese through Swedish. I've learned Portuguese, Italian, through French. I learned Catalan through Czech. I learned many languages through different languages. Russian through Spanish as well. I've learned German through Spanish. Lots of different combinations actually. Do I know Persian? I know a little bit of Persian, yes, but not very well. Let me see. I was just suggesting to start learning Arabic. I'd probably say, I answered that a little bit in the beginning. I'm conscious that I'm going to get cut off soon, so I better go. Thank you all for coming, and I will look forward to speaking to you next week. Hey, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.